Are rolling live. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Right. Okay. So, last week we were just about to complete Reish Samech Gimel. We were really at the very end, and if you don't have the sheet or a copy of the Mishnah Berurah, I think I left in the office, but we were really right at the end. And then I also want to read the Aruch HaShulchan, which I printed for you, about the end of the simon. He has his take about this whole question, not really question, I guess it is a question, about whether a Jew turned to would not accept the Shabbos and for me, I forgot, or whatever the situation may be. So the just as a reminder, the Shulchan Aruch are permitted. It's not it doesn't even sound like a b'di'evet, after the fact kind of situation. It's a permissible. You can absolutely tell your friend to do malacha. And Rama adds it. This is not anything in contradiction or in addition or taking it further of the Shulchan Aruch's opinion, which is like actually, and not just like, oh, I forgot, I have this party, I have this important party on Saturday night. Can you make sure to do this one thing for me? But I'm not going to benefit from it directly on Shabbos. No. It could be about it could be about Shabbos, and I can derive direct benefit from this malacha that I asked the Jew to do.
This includes members of your household?
Presumably, so it's interesting because the actually the extra commentary I saw here on the side said actually here, if you're Tommy, it's number 60.
Obviously not if they've accepted Shabbos, right?
In fact, they say this from I guess from the Makor Chaim, Avalim Hayab Zebino. It's your child, right? That you're going to tell this to. So the Makor Chaim says She'aser Lo Malalasas Mlachalav Ro. That he doesn't feel comfortable with. He says that's prohibited. Why? Kevin Shemiyad Shekib Alav As Shabbos Chalav Din Shvisas Beno. This is a very clever take, because what does it say in the Torah this week? This upcoming week's Parsha in Yisro, I think we have it. What does it say? Doesn't it say you can't do malacha? What does it say? Ata uvincha. Oh, so you have a mitzvah, just like we've talked about in the past. You can't tell your animal. You can't have your animal do malacha on your behalf on Shabbos. Now, if your animal does its own thing for its own benefit, that's the animal's fault, or not fault. That's the animal. But the animal, that's the animal's prerogative. But this is but for me to tell my son. He says, the Torah says that you have an obligation to ensure that your children rest. So he says, because of that verse, it's a very novel idea, actually to tell your child in this situation to do it. The Makor Chaim says, because Shvisas, but no, you have a responsibility to ensure your children refrain from malacha.
That I can understand, but to say to your husband, I forgot to turn off the oven, you can do that?
Well, the pasuk never says anything about a spouse, interestingly enough.
What?
But the pasuk never says anything about a spouse, interestingly enough. Right? That's going to be in Dvarim, yeah. There it says shocha v'chamorcha, yeah. But but basically your animals, but it never says spouse.
Yeah. But the Torah realized that they didn't need to tell a wife that she didn't need to direct her husband with something. And I figured that was going to happen.
That was going to happen. There you go. Right. So that's why they're not on the list. Not on the list.
No, but by the way, look, you can poskin however you want, but I can tell you that happens all the time in our house.
Oh, sure.
Like, look, I'm going to let this go. I'm lighting now. Turn off the absolutely. That happens all the time. But with the children, that's very interesting, because clearly that has to be different, right?
Right. That's what he's saying here. Now he does quote this in this commentary, in this extra commentary you see there. If you're looking ahead, Tommy, right? They quotes from the Shevet Halevi in a tshuva that he wrote, and he actually takes the opposite approach. He doesn't say you can claim that this law has taken effect quite yet. What do you mean? My son, let's say, who's going to go to shul with dad, he didn't accept Shabbos yet. How do I know? What's the proof? He's going to get in the car with dad and he's going to go to shul.
Right.
So therefore, therefore, even if let's say the dad did and the son didn't yet, right? He was a few minutes behind, getting ready. It's not prohibited to tell the son who is by law permitted to do this. So there's a machlok, and here it seems also that the Igros Moshe, weighs in on this as well in a similar manner with the Shevet HaLevi. So I would think that if, as BJ said, and I think everyone around the table can acknowledge, Maisim b'chol yom, as we say, that someone, particularly the wife, lit candles. And oops, I forgot this, or I left this on, and you say to the husband, or she says to the children who are still not yet in the Shabbos mode. So I think you have Yeshal listed for certain. You have what to rely upon that it's.
By the way, in the summer, it's always the other way. Right? Oh, yeah, no, for her. I mean, because, I'm not lighting until, I don't care that you're back from shul. I'm not lighting
yeah,
yet, right?
100%. Correct. As a husband and except Shabbos when she lit the candle. That's right. Okay, so now and then Ramah says that remember last week he said a kol shekei that Motzai Shabbos, one who is extended Shabbos a little later, they're going to daven a little bit later. They were part of a longer Shabbos Shudas situation, right? They were me'acher milispal milot Shabbos mamshich sudas of alayla mutar lo mal chaver Yisrael shekvar he spalal. You could tell someone who's already davened. You can ask them to do malacha, light a candle for you, or cook for you already. You have something going on Motzei Shabbos, and can you get the fire started? Heat up the barbecue, whatever the situation may be. And you can then go ahead and eat from that malacha that's being done at your service. Okay, nearly. This is as says the Ramah. That appeared to me the correct approach. Now, where we left off in the Mishnah Berurah was I think we were up to Samech Samech. What was it? Samech. We were up back to Samech Bet. I think we got further than that. No.
No.
Oh, okay.
That's just where
That was where you left off.
yeah, but.
All right, fine. We'll you know what? I think we were at one ahead of that at least. I think Samech Gimel. Okay. So hoil v'hitzchil beheter. Since you started while it was permissible, right? No, that goes back. Sorry, that goes back to Tez Zion. Actually, we're at least one more ahead of that one, because that's still on Tez Zion. So in Yud Zion, because I know we finished Tez Zion last week. So Yud Zion. So mutter lomar the kaven shel chavero mutter. Why is this all permissible? Because for your friend it's okay. Ein isur amira shayach bazeh. This is a little bit of review. There's no amira le someone who can do something in a permissible fashion. And you have to talking about there's much time still left in the day. If it's close to dark, then most of the people have exception. Shabbos, and the minority are literally dragged with the majority into Shabbos. So this whole heter, don't start playing this game, within the, last few minutes before Shkia, right? Not candlelighting time, but, I'm talking about 5 minutes before, because at that point, probably most people are already into Shabbos. So he thinks that's too close to play this game of asking a Jew to, malacha. I can't tell you how many minutes we're talking about here, but if you're talking about you just like candles, that's different. I would think you're talking about a couple minutes right before sunset. Most people at that point probably are in Shabbos mode in your town. And he says here, "V'lo shayach dinze." Sorry, uchriel b'siv yubet. V'lo shayach dinze. Okay, and then he says that in that situation, this whole halacha is not relevant. And then just sort of separately, when you get close to Ben Hashmashos, don't wait to say Bizmor Shil Yom HaShabbos, meaning don't, what are you waiting for? It doesn't have to be dark. It's close enough. Start saying Bizmor Shil Yom HaShabbos, O Sharma Amarim Hanogim Lomar B'Shvil Kabbalah Shabbos, or the other Mizmorei Tehillim, B'Shvil Ezra Noshim HaOskim B'Veisam, B'Inyonehem, Umashin Lavo Leveis HaKnesses. You start to tarry because this one didn't come to me, but he always comes to me. We should wait for him. No, the Mishnah Berurah says don't wait for people. When it's time to daven, it's time to daven. In fact, Aruch HaShulchan, actually, you could look on your sheets on this. In the last Chav Ches, Sif Katan Chav Ches, it's on page Tzadi Ches, the second sheet, I think, on in this little mini packet of Aruch HaShulchan that I gave you. It's the left-hand column. And I want you to look almost towards the end of the sif, where there's a sentence where he says, Poshut. It's before the Rashi script in the left-hand column on that big paragraph Chavches. It's the one sentence or 3 lines or one sentence before the Rashi script. I don't know if you see it, Poshut. It's in the middle of the line.
in the middle of the line.
Okay.
Yeah.
He had finished, we're going to read the other part soon, by the way. He had just finished a different thought. And here he says, don't wait for the big macher to come to shul. Okay. He's not here yet. We're up to, Mitzvah Shili Yom Shabbos. It's time to really get the show on the road. So he says, don't wait even for an Adam Gadol. And then he says, that's in general. When there's a mitzvah that's ready to be done, and the tzibur, particularly when there's a tzibur that's waiting, you should never wait. You should go. The tzibur, it's not, in general, we don't like to cause delay to the tzibur. It makes life complicated for so many people that don't wait for the Adam God. So I'm just saying he's reflecting this point here in much more sharp terms, where he sort of points out, even if there's somebody who, important person, a chashuv person in the shul, you shouldn't necessarily be waiting.
They wait for the Rebbe.
The Rebbe, I know it's a little bit of a different world there. I mean, the Rebbe, because they in so many ways. Again, I don't want to weigh in. I'm not in that world so much, but yes, you're describing correctly. That my understanding is that if the Rebbe is not there yet. In fact, I think he tried to that Dafka sometimes they come sort of fashionably late, so it's full already when he gets there. But
One side of the street is Shabbos.
one side of the street.
It's actually interesting because in the Zohar, it says the Shekhinah is always there first, right? So when you decide to come fashionably late, you're keeping the Shekhinah
You're
with
keeping the Shekhinah away. There you go.
it just,
Particularly-
that's very hard to
And
understand.
particularly, right, if you have a minion already, right, then, less Montepalik, meaning there's no one argues, then the Shekhinah is there, right? And even if you don't say
Right,
the Zohar,
exactly.
but if you have a minion, everybody agrees that that's when the Shekhinah is present, and so, it's nice to, not keep Hashem waiting, I guess. So,
One would think.
Samachay, B'chol Shkem Motzai Shabbos, certainly all the more so on Motzai Shabbos.
What we're talking about now doesn't really speak to the practice that we have of starting very early in the summer, right? That's a
Yeah.
different concept that we haven't gotten to here. in what
About
we're
asking a
discussing.
Jew, so.
No, not about asking the Jew, just this whole notion that, he's saying, don't delay. I'm saying Mizmor Shili Yom
Oh,
Shabbat,
that's when
right?
it's getting Samuch Levein Hashmashos.
Right, I understand, but he's not speaking to the other side, like how early you can do it.
No.
All
No,
right,
I
so
think-
that's not
I think-
discussed here, right?
Yeah, no one's saying you're forced to take Shabbos early, unless that's what.
Well, I'm just
that's
talking
what
about
Tzibur.
You're permissible to that. How early? We
Oh,
haven't
so-
haven't discussed.
So how early? The earliest, actually, we may
Did
have
we
been,
talk about
it may have been number of weeks ago now. Plag HaMincha is the earliest Zman one can light Shabbos candles or daven Mariv, just like any night, right? Mincha, in that situation would need to be completed before Plag HaMincha, and then Mariv could commence after that point. But before that, it is a problem. That was actually the point of the Shulchan Aruch a few seifim ago, that if you're on a cloudy day, there was a mistake and the
Right.
and the tzibur daven before Plag HaMincha, then even the tzibur would have to go back and daven, because that wasn't even relevant to talk about the next day whatsoever.
In the summer, it's after Black.
Yeah. That we're going to get to in not so long, in a number of simanim, where it's not ideal. I'll be blunt. It is not ideal that we daven mincha after Plag and Marav before Shkia, because what that's as Tosfos explains, that's a Tarte de Sasre. It's two things that are in logical contradiction to each other, and the Aruch HaShulchan, actually, we'll see, has a clever justification for this minhag that goes back. This is not a Scarsdale issue. This is many shuls have this like holy 7 o'clock zman in the summer. I don't know where it comes from, but many shuls have this. They pick a random time, it's a fixed time, and they continue with that throughout the summer. And this is a custom that the Aruch HaShulchan acknowledges goes back some ways. And he justifies it. It is not the most halachically sound thing to do, but there is a leg to stand on, particularly based on the idea of a long-standing tradition. And minhag is something that the Aruch HaShulchan is a big defender of.
It
So
certainly works if you're in the northern line, where Shabbos is gonna start at 1 in the morning. maybe.
right, so sometimes
It's a midnight Sunday,
Right.
so-
right there, by the way, it's probably easier to daven, around Plag before mincha before and there. Here, actually, Plag mincha, in the summertime, ends up for the most part being around 6:45, 6:50. To ask everyone to come to shul at 6:35 or 6:40, I don't know. It'll be a big change. So I don't know if
June, July, even.
it's even earlier, right? Right. So exactly. So let's.
Tried that. That was the.
Oh, how did it go? I'm
Because
sorry.
they were, there were a lot of young families wanting to
They won't
get the Shabbat started early.
Right.
And about 7 people.
Okay. A failed experiment. Okay. All right. It's good that we tried. Okay. So he says here, Kolshkim Mosai Shabbos, perish to Hab Erev Shabbos Kvar Keep El Shabbos V'Yev Shalachzor. Now, what is this all the more so on the back end of Shabbos? Because when it comes to before Shabbos, so you already accepted Shabbos, now you can't go back. So, even then we allow you to do it. We'll talk more on the Aruch HaShulchan. He gives better explanation why. Kolshkim was all the more so Mosai Shabbos. Because you could just end Shabbos right then and there. You're in control. You're in the driver's seat. So all the more so it is permissible to tell someone who's Jewish who already finished Shabbos to go ahead and do a malacha. Samach Vav, he's followed B'hivdil. What is you daven and you did Havdalah? That's how the Ramah wrote it. You daven, this person did Havdalah and daven and did Havdalah. Hainu shehivdil batfila. What Havdalah are we talking here? We don't have to say that this person who you ask does not have to have done Havdalah with a cup of wine and a candle. He says as long as they did Havdalah in the Tefillah. Havdalah and Tefillah is in the bracha of Atachonin, the paragraph that is inserted in that bracha. If you say that paragraph, by the way, Shabbos is now you are permitted to do any malacha. Eating is a different story. We'll get to that. If you don't make the Havdalah al Hakos, you cannot eat yet. Just like anytime you have a mitzvah to do, when the mitzvah of Hanukkah candles is upon you, the mitzvah of Kriya Shema is upon you at night and you haven't done it, you're really not supposed to eat until you've fulfilled all your mitzvahs. That's not a surprising comment. Correct. But then when the Zman comes, you're good, right? You don't have to even say Baruch Hamavdil ben Kodesh L'chol, the magic words. Okay? And he says here, Kiddush Kaman b'Siman Reish Tzaites, if you just make Havdalah in Malacha, you can do in Tachonin, you can do Malacha, Av Shelo Hivdil Alakos, even if you haven't done it with the cup of wine yet. And last comment he makes here, Motei Lehanos, and he says it's permissible to benefit from this. Now, he's going to quote a minority, the singular opinion who doesn't like this amongst the Rishonim and Achronim. He says, "Lavush Osed, Lavush did not like this," and he said, "I don't think you can benefit from it." The Motzei Shabbos case, unless you do one thing. Elaim kein berach v'yisiach dat from your Shabbos. You need to bench. You need to whatever meal you're extending right now. You need to stop, right? And when you're doing this benching, when you bench, Yisiach dat from your Shabbos. Don't say Ritzeh. That's what I think he's saying. Because when you just ask somebody to do malacha, so you don't have it both ways. You can't tell somebody, can you do Sevach Litzenu Hashem Elkeinu B'Yom Shabbos? What? You can't say it's Shabbos. Shabbat Hagadol Hakadosh. You just told this guy to do what he said. The Levush said, I don't like that. You're going along Shalosh Shudas? Fine. Don't say Ritzeh. Do me a favor. You're going to do this, don't say Ritzeh.
But he's telling you to accelerate your benching.
Right.
Is that what you said?
No, so I think, so I apologize if I made that implication. I think he said, no, when you bench.
When you bench.
When you bench, don't be a hypocrite. That's what he's saying here. But many disagree with him. The Achronim Hiskimu with Shulchan Aruch, but the Achronim really agree with the straight up opinion of the Shulchan Aruch, which is you are permitted to tell a Jew who for them it's not Shabbos anymore to do a malacha, and you can even benefit from it. Meaning, by the way, Levush doesn't say you can't benefit from it. He's just saying, don't be a hypocrite. You didn't say Abdullah yet in your davening because you didn't daven yet. So for you still have to observe all the prohibitions of the malacha. But at least don't be such a hypocrite that you start saying Ritzay after you told the guy to do. Okay.
That's actually very interesting. So does it count as the third meal?
Yeah, it should. Yeah, I would think that it should.
I mean, if you're benching and not saying,
Right.
right?
Because if you, on a regular Shalashudas, if you forget to say Ritzay, back up.
Right,
If
you
you
have to
forget
go
to say Ritzay on Friday night or Shabbos lunch, you have to repeat the entirety of benching.
Right.
Unless you catch the mistake. We talked about this years ago around the table. Years ago. Where if you catch it right after you say Uvanei Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim, Amen. Oh, I forgot Ritzay or I forgot Yalav Yavo. There's a special compensatory bracha to make in that spot. If you forgot, you already were into the middle of the next bracha, you actually have to go back to the beginning of benching and include Ritzay. But in Shalashudas, you don't need to go back and say Ritzay if you forgot it. Why? I have an obligation to eat the meal. That's the whole reason I have to go back. Why? Because on the third meal, it's much better halachically to have bread. But if I don't have bread, I had some mizonot, I had even minimally fruit. Then technically I fulfilled my obligation of Shalashudas. Therefore, we're not going to send you back. The benching wasn't a given. When benching is a given because of Shabbos, then I have to mention the Shabbos. But here it wasn't a given. So I would think that even so, you probably fulfilled Shalashudas, before you got to this point of asking your friend. Okay. So anyway, the Achronim agree with the Shulchan Aruch. So you have here the majority of the opinions seem to be citing that it is permissible to do this. Like we have been talking about. The wife lights the candles. Oh, I forgot. Husband, go do X, Y, or Z. Or the husband, came home from, shul or whatever. He davened and he says to the wife, I forgot to, blah, 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 blah. Seems like you're in good standing so long as the majority of the community hasn't accepted Shabbos. Last thing he says here in the Mishnah Berurah, he says, you're in the middle of Shalashudas, you say, Baruch Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lachom. You may say the magic words. Everyone agrees it's mutter. Now even the Levush gets on board. Because at least, you know what? You're not a hypocrite anymore. Now you said it's not Shabbos. And now you'll daven Marv afterwards. You can do that. And then it's for sure not a problem. Then what do you mean? Even he could do the malacha. So it's not even a question anymore. Now he's like, now even everybody would have a question. Can you say Ritzay? Can you say Ritzay? Yeah, I started the meal with Shabbos. It was Shalashudas. But now I just said Baruch Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lachom. Forget the Levush. He's for sure going to be jumping up and down and screaming on this one. But now everybody might have a big question whether you can really say Ritzay at this point. Since now you've turned this thing into a weekday situation by saying the magic words. So I believe in that situation, by the way. Yeah, and if you said in the middle of your meal, Baruch Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lachom, you've now said the word saying, I am now acknowledging that there is a differentiation between Shabbos and the weekdays. I'm now saying it's weekdays, and let's say it's the time already where you could do that. It is now the weekdays for you.
You're not doing it during any tefillah.
Yeah, I didn't daven
in a Havdalah service. You're just making the statement.
I made a statement before, and it's before I daven Marav yet. You could do that, by the way. We do that. I'm telling you, we're going to do that this year in a few weeks on Purim. Purim Saturday night. We're going to tell everybody we're going to daven mincha early that day, and we'll sell it because everybody's good. Otherwise, you know what the problem is? Because if people haven't said the magic words yet, and they didn't daven it, and they don't do it, then they're going to do hachana, preparation from Shabbos to week. Because by putting your costume on, it's a problem because Shabbos is not. Purim is not on Shabbos. You can't prep for Purim until you end it. So we're going to tell people, Baruch Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lachom. We're going to give people legitimately 30 minutes or something like that, because that way you could change yourself, you could change your children, and then you'll drive your car. So, and then we'll daven Marv all together here in the shul. So Baruch Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lachom, it's over. So in the middle of Shalashudas, say Baruch Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lachom. How can you say Ritzay? In fact, he says here the Rav Elyashiv, number 68. Rav Elyashiv says you shouldn't say it. You shouldn't say it. You should try though to go over to somebody else's table. They didn't say Baruch Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lachom. And when they're benching, say, can you bench loud and have me in mind? And you'll say Amen to all their brachos, and they'll say Ritzay. And that way you chap to Ritzay. Okay.
I just,
Some
is,
fiddles are-
That's what Rabbi Elyashiv says he should try to do.
didn't we say at the start, and is it gonna be addressed that the goy can't do it? Didn't we say?
That if the goy
a
can't do
Jew
it-
can be told, which is the opposite of what usually is the
Right,
case.
so the Aruch HaShulchan, we're gonna talk about
He's
that in a
gonna
second.
address
He doesn't tackle it directly, but you'll see from his reasoning why why the differentiation. So we're gonna get there in literally, hopefully 30 seconds. There's one last thing here. The Pri Megadim is quoted here saying, there's no concept of being dragged, right? Oh, the majority are still keeping Shabbos. They're doing, Rabbeinu Tam or something like that, or whatever. They're going long. And you're like, I don't want to, Shabbos is over. I love Shabbos. Thank you, Shabbos. Thank you, Hashem, for the Shabbos, but Shabbos is over now. So there's no such concept as being dragged along. They're singing and and you're like, I need a breakaway minion right now because they can't stop singing.
Because I want to get to the start of the movie.
Exactly. The show starts at 7:30. Like, guys, enough with this Miros. When the Zman comes, you are allowed. You don't have to wait until the majority of the community. If you want to go ahead and daven with your minion, then that's fine. In fact, by the way, you should know that I will leave the shul nameless if they're watching. I doubt they're watching, but I don't want to get say. There's a shul where there's a main shul minion where they daven, and it's always called for exactly the same time as this other minion that happens like in the base medrash on the side. It's at the end of Shabbos. It's the time for Mount. They're supposed to start at the exact same time. One minion always has a reputation of starting a few minutes later than the main shul minion, because sometimes they're a little late from Shalosh Shudas, whatever. But this other minion, Mamish, I've been in this minion before. There's one of those clocks that it tells you the time to a second, and the moment it's the exact second, and they are finished in literally 8 minutes, and they get out 5 minutes before the other minion. And it's not like there's not
I've
space.
gotten in a shul like that.
It's not like there isn't
Absolutely.
space in the other minion. They can't take the extra 5 minutes. So they have their own minion where they go, So and so again, there's plenty of space in the other minion. There's not an overflow. Anyways, it's very funny. So let's take a look at the Aruch HaShulchan, because I want to dig deeper on this. Why is it that what's the underpinnings? What are the underpinnings of this heter to tell a Jew to do something when you can't do it yourself right now? So if you go on page study sign, the first page of this Aruch HaShulchan packet I just gave you, the left-hand column, it's a Sif Katan Chav Vav. That's the name. That's the paragraph. You'll see, by the way, in this edition. This is what I have. This is my edition of the Aruch HaShulchan. This was printed not so long ago. Last decade, this was been printed, I think. They correspond the Sif on the side here that you'll find the Shulchan Aruch. It's very clever because Aruch HaShulchan doesn't always write in order. Sometimes he writes in not the order that the siman is you'll find it in the Shulchan Aruch. So he says here in Sif Katan Chavav, Koslu Rabboseinu Ba'alei HaShulchan Aruch Sif Yud Zayin Yesh Omrim Shemisha Kibel Alav Shabbos Kodem Shechashecha Mutar Lo Lama Yisrael Chaver Lasas Lo Malacha. Okay, good. This is he's quoting. Umutar Lo Hanos Me'osa Malacha B'Shabbos Kol Shkem Motzai Shabbos. Quoting the Ramah there. Umi Sheme'acher Lispal B'Motzai Shabbos Umam Shechsu Lasas B'Layla. Umutar Lo Malacha Chaver Yisrael Shekvar Hispal B'Hibdil Lasas Lo Malacha Lehadik Lo Neros B'Uvlo Vashalo Umutar Lo Hanos B'Lechol B'Malachto Ad Kad Masham. Good. He quotes this to give us context. Now comes his unique mind. There are two reasons behind this heter. Ha'achas, number one, since it's within the realm of possibility that you could have done this malacha at this time. Kigon, for example, on Erev Shabbos, the Iboy, if I would like, lo kibel Shabbos adayin. I didn't have to keep to accept Shabbos still. So therefore, it was this time, right? Shabbos starts at 5. I accept Shabbos at 4:15. At 4:25, I go to somebody and I say, at 4:25, there was a possibility that I could have done this malacha. So since it was in the realm of a possibility, therefore, he says, one reason, one potential heter here is because since it was possible for me to do it, I can't ask a Jew to do it. Now you say, I don't like that. There'll be reason to. And he says, with Motzai Shabbos, the boy, similarly, if I would like, I am Avdil on the page, the Atzmo, I could also just make Havdalah myself. And then the Chol Sheyesh, so the Chol Sheyesh Lo Heter Ba'atzmo, wherever there's a permissibility for me to do it myself, Yochol Lomar L'Chavim, then I can tell my friend to do it. And since there was a potential possibility of me being able to do this myself by law, I am allowed to tell somebody else, even though I myself, now I'm in a situation where I can't do it. Okay, maybe you'll say those are shaky grounds. And he says, amira shavus. And here there is no violation of the shavus, this idea that I'm supposed to refrain from things on Shabbos in the realm here of amira, of things that's come out of my mouth. Kamosha the Gemara, like it says in the Gemara on Shabbos, mutar la'adam lomar l'chavero l'krach ploni ani halech l'machar. I'm allowed to tell somebody, that tomorrow I'm going to go to such and such a place. What does that do with Shabbos? Okay, but I'm allowed to tell you that.
It's not preparation or anything, right?
Right? Okay, fine. Go to the Va'od Tam. Okay, so I'm allowed to tell you things that, I'm allowed to do. I'm allowed to tell you tomorrow I'm going to go, because I'm allowed tomorrow, to go to whatever place. Va'od Tam. Okay. Because again, prohibited speech relates to things that I'm not allowed to do. I shouldn't be talking the stock market on Shabbos, what trades I'm going to make during this week, or that on Monday, when we get to the office, we'll start with this, and then we'll do that, and then we'll write that. That you shouldn't talk about on Shabbos. That's a violation of what we shouldn't be talking. That's not Shabbos. It has nothing to do with Shabbos. But if
you let everybody know that you can't talk business on Shabbos, be a lot quieter in this show.
You'd have to eliminate sports.
Right. Sports is a very popular topic. Yes. The Otam, the Lo Matzino Amir Shavuos. Elabadavar Haser Lichol Yisrael. Now, this is a very clever idea. This is not, the other reason, number two, and this perhaps I think is stronger, that the Amira of Shavuos, the prohibited speech, things that are not to tell to another person, is when it's prohibited to all the Jewish people. That's when it kicks in. But if another person is permitted for them to talk about expiry, because them is on Shabbos, like in the situation we've just described. How can I talk about something that's permissible to this person? For them, it's okay to talk about this.
Yeah, but it's Shabbat for you.
Correct. But so he's saying that the principle doesn't kick in. This halachic principle doesn't kick in until it is prohibited for everybody. Meaning it is completely Shabbos in your neighborhood. Right? Forbidding, it is Shabbos in the neighborhood, right? That's when, okay, now the technicality of the legal ruling doesn't kick in until that point. You'll say it's not in the spirit of Shabbos. Okay, we can always make arguments that it's not in the spirit of Shabbos. Not in the spirit of Shabbos I am not poo-pooing it. It's an important, what I'll call hashkafic principle. As a rabbi, I say this very seriously. It's a very important hashkafic principle that it should feel like Shabbos. But you can't bring that into a courtroom, right? A courtroom, I need to know, what is the law? Interpret the law for me. The law, according to this, the interpretation of the law is that this prohibition doesn't kick in until it is prohibited for all people. So speech from one to another, even though for me it's Shabbos, I'm allowed to talk to Tommy, because for Tommy, it's said both parties, it's not Shabbos yet. So therefore it's permissible. So, by the way, and I could talk to Tommy then in that situation, even if he accepted Shabbos also early. He can't do it though because he accepted Shabbos, but I'm allowed to talk to him about that, technically. Okay? So, Umitzad Atam Arishon, now he says, what about let's compare the two opinions. Umitzad Atam Arishon, go back to the first opinion, Kila Motzai Shabbos Erev Shabbos. It would be more, I'd understand room for more leniency on Motzai Shabbos, because there it's in my control to end Shabbos whenever I want, than on Erev Shabbos. The Erev Shabbos, yes, you could always make the argument, I could have not accepted Shabbos, until now. Nevertheless, ata eno hete. Now you have no, permission to do this action that you're asking someone else to do. Motzoi Shabbos, so you are, it's in your grasp. You can end Shabbos. B'chol regel lo mahav l'avdil. Umota b'malach. You could say the magic words and be over with. V'yesh mi shirot zelach lo kal din zeh. There are people who argue on this, and their proofs are knocked away. Okay, good. Let's go on to Chav Ches. Skip over Chav Zayin. Also, Chav Zayin, he just simply talks about the idea of being dragged with the Kehila. Okay, which we touched on. Importantly, Chav Ches though. Yesh Misha wrote. Now this is where it gets a little interesting. Yesh Misha wrote it. Lomar, the Tam Harishon, she was Sipchavav, the first according to the first reason we just saw. The boy lo kabil Shabbos. If you want to not accept Shabbos, okay, so I didn't have to do it. Let's say I belong to a community, a congregation, where they daven at a particular time. There's only one minyan, and they kept Shabbos. The gam hu kibel imohim, and I went to shul. I'm a good member of my shul, and I went with them to daven. There are those who want to say that according to this approach, and but I'm from Columbus, Ohio, but in Cleveland, if you ever went to Cleveland, the unorthodox Jewish community in Cleveland for even any moment of time, yes. No. So in Beechwood on Green Road, there is a fascinating thing you'll see. There are literally 4 shuls, one next to the other, next to the other, next to the other. It's fascinating. And then there's one across the street. So on Green Road, there is, that's called the Green Road Synagogue. Okay. Anyone who knows Rabbi Blau from Yeshiva University, his son is the rabbi in that shul. Next to it is the Young Israel of Greater Cleveland. It's a little more to the right, than the Green Road shul. And then you have the Chabad that's next to it. And then there's another shul. It's like a steeple, a little more yeshivish Welt. Something like that. It's like mamish. I spent the summer at a summer job there when I was back in the day, and mamish 4 shuls next to each other. So you see your friend who goes to the other shul, and they daven later. So can I not tell my friend who's davening at the other shul, who literally davens 30 meters away, 30 feet away? Can I not tell him I forgot to turn the chulent onto low, and now the chulent's going to be burnt tomorrow if I don't switch it from high to low. Can you help me? So there's an opinion that says that wants to say that I can't do that, according to the first approach. Why? He says here, Mishum deveki gavna, lekatama de ibay lo kabil de hayochi nigra acharabim. Because sorry, you know what? My shul, in my little micro world, it's over. I'm done. Even the members of that shul who didn't go, sorry, you're part of that shul. Now, we've already kind of knocked away this idea that if you're in a big community where you have multiple shuls, you have what to rely upon that, many Jews at the other shul haven't accepted Shabbos. And that's what he writes here. He says, this doesn't make sense. He says, I don't see this as a good application of that logic. It's just because of the situation that he said, I don't like the Metzias here. And he says, by the way, and this is the better reason. Never happened before, right? Somebody goes, I'll go to a different shul, right? You can always go to a different shul and daven, right? I missed the minyan here, or I one time I wanted to Shabbos later. I go to a different shul. We don't know this here because we're one shul neighborhood, but in other neighborhoods, sometimes the thing that makes you go to one shul over the other is the time and the distance. Right, and so you're like, I usually go to this shul on Shabbos morning, but on Friday night it's easier. I go to this shul; it's closer, and the daven at a better time for me. People do it all the time. They jump shuls.
We do that during the week all the time.
During the week, right? People go to this, they go to this minyan, they go to whatever is the most convenient for your life.
Our minyan, I'm going to go to. Right.
Right. So we're not so like in our lanes, whatever. So he says, "Zagam yesh misha wrote the lomar the hamakabo Shabbos mikodem habi bichlal neder v'yachol hatiro," and get it very fancy. If you're accepting Shabbos early, it's really like a neder in some ways. I'm vowing I'm not taking on malacha. You're allowed to do my hataras nadarim, so maybe you could do it. I don't know. Now you're getting a little cute for me, according to this. But okay. Bottom line is, if you are in a situation where your shul has taken a Shabbos, but the other shuls haven't, and you happen to talk to somebody who hasn't done Shabbos yet, so you can, this still there still applies. Now he throws a whole monkey wrench into this thing. This is Aruch HaShulchan, I believe, just thinking out loud. He acknowledges this. Udvarim Temurim, this whole thing is very wondrous to me. The Kevin the Kaimalam the Rov HaPoskim Tosefah Shabbos Do Raisa. You know, most of the poskim say that the idea of adding to Shabbos is a concept that is biblical. But in Shir Laha Tosefes, and we don't say how much is extra. You have to just add something. You can choose. Im Kain, the person who starts Shabbos, you know, with a lot of extra Shabbos, a lot of early Shabbos. Hello, Din Torahu. Shouldn't this be on a biblical level that you've accepted Shabbos now? Which would mean, because the underlying head there here is hey, the rabbi said, so therefore not a big deal. But if you say right now it's a deoraisa for you, then all the laws have come into play, including Amira, including any prohibition of speech, and there should be no heter unless you start to say, oh, you know, the heter that are viable for you on Shabbos. Shvus to shvus b'makom mitzvah, like there's a situation of a great need. Then I can say something to a non-Jew because for that, you know, because that's already only to Rabbana to tell a non-Jew to do it, and the whole thing is that the Rabbana whatever it has to be makom mitzvah. There are still heter, but it's not easy. But here he's throwing a whole monkey wrench. I don't understand how this heter only, and he acknowledges that like he's like I don't look what he says. I've never heard anybody discuss this. And if we're going to say Tosefah Shabbos is a deoraisa, why are we so lenient with the rules of Tosefah Shabbos? He's just wondering aloud. And therefore, if you went to the Aruch HaShulchan shul and you asked him the Shaila, it sounds like he says, says, I don't like this whole thing. Ask a Jew to do that. I don't like it. Don't rely on this, practically speaking. Now, even the Mishnah Brura, who's usually the Machmir, the Mishnah, the Aruch HaShulchan is usually the Mekil because he's a minhag defender. He doesn't say a word here about this, and he even wrote that the Achronim are masking with the Shulchan Aruch. And I think that the minhag Yisrael is to rely on the Shulchan Aruch, the straight up Shulchan Aruch opinion, which is to ask a Jew. People do it all the time. We go around the table here. How many times that the one spouse asks the other spouse to do something after they accepted Shabbos? And I bet you, if you took a poll, this is minhag Yisrael. Now, better to avoid these things. I certainly I'm asking, but I think that certainly b'diavad, after the fact, now you're in the situation where you need the malacha to be done. I think you have more than what to rely upon here in this situation. And even though I appreciate the Aruch HaShulchan's intellectual honesty here and his wonderment, but I don't think that this really reflects where minhag Yisrael is.
Yeah, and not speaking to this notion that he raises at the end here, but it seems to me there's a clear-cut difference logically, which would allow you to reach the conclusions that we reach, right? So in the case of a Amir La'aku, right?
Yeah.
You're saying to them, look, do this for me. Now, they don't have an obligation one way or another. Right. So now you're taking somebody who doesn't have that obligation, isn't doing it for themselves, and you're making them an instrumentality of yourself, which is why we're not allowed to do it, period, right? But in the case of a Jew, that's not the case at all, right? Because they do have an obligation, and they are individuals who can make a determination of when they want to do it, right?
Shabbos, they have their own.
So
they have their
it
own,
just seems to me that that's not even a problem, you know, reconciling the two.
Right.
You know, but coming to what he says here, if we have a deoraita obligation to bring it early, and you've done so.
Right.
He
just
wonders.
It's
How
interesting.
Yeah.
He wonders how loud.
Very
This whole thing is a
About
very
these
question.
kept separate.
These I'm going to put in the shame. Actually, we'll leave them next week. So I'll pile them up here. We'll stop here. Next week, we start at the beginning of Reish Samech Daled. Dinei Haptila Hashemen. We'll talk about the wicks and the oil. So for those of you this week, please pay very close attention during Babei Madlikin. We're going to actually, Aruch HaShulchan breaks down the first mission of Babei Madlikin and says, because they're not going to go through the whole list in the Shulchan Aruch, but he says basically you can explain why this type of wick is no good and this type of oil is no good. And the bottom line is going to be that it all comes down to a fear that you will tip the wick or the flame or the whatever the contraption holding the oil. Certain wicks, were known to be troublemakers in terms of catching the flame and really, allowing if the wick is too wobbly and it falls this way or the oil it doesn't help catch the flame quickly. These are things that are going to lead you to you're trying to fix the lights, right? So you're going to touch it and play with it. And I liken this a little bit to, today never happens. Sometimes a person could walk into, we could imagine such a thing, and because of we're used to certain things. Our rote selves take over, and we flip the light switch. Because you walk into a room, and of course that's what you do 6 other days a week. You go in, it's dark, and you knock on the light on. I think that what underlies it, why would you tilt it? It's a Shabbos. I think what underlies this, in my opinion, is that this was probably second nature to them, how to fix their own lights around the house. Was that there was a problem in the room, you're trying to do something, you're like, oh, oops. and so in order to avoid this problem, they didn't want you to use wicks and oils that were problematic. They wanted you to use something that was more stable. And if you did use something that was problematic, they gave you some sort of, almost like a knas, a penalty, like you can't really use that. So we'll talk about all that next week. It'll get into the weeds or the wicks. I acknowledge as we go into it next week that this is something that is so not practical in our world, where you go and you buy the candles that are already made, or you buy even if you use oil, you pour the oil, you get a good wick from the store. You go online or Amazon, or you go to Caesar's, you get a wick. You don't try to make a wick yourself. It's not something that people do. So it's practical in the sense that it's relevant, but it's not so relevant in that we don't really. What was that?
Saving the eggshell.
That's right. Yeah, right. That's right. You pierce the egg, and the egg is the Mishnah. I'm thinking that the egg is dripping. The whole yes.